Hey, come see me do stand-up in Ontario, California, Las Vegas, and Davenport, Iowa. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Big news last week. Washington Post went after the Grayzone. And let me tell you what happened real quick before I bring in Max. Here's the article. Failing Washington Post attempts to get Grayzone editor jailed with error-filled smear piece. Did that really happen? Yeah, it really did. After sending Wyatt a series of... So Wyatt is the reporter for the Grayzone. After sending Wyatt a series of aggressively worded emails implicitly threatening to have him criminally prosecuted and demanding to speak with his lawyer, the Washington Post employee relied on a series of hacked documents to expose what Wyatt never attempted to conceal. While beginning his journalistic career, he appeared on the Iranian news outlet Press TV several dozen times. Can I just say, the Washington Post has more spooks woven in there than a Disneyland attraction. Anyway, incidentally, during this time, Wyatt received payment from such nefarious foreign outlets as CBS Weekend News and CBS This Morning, which correctly credited him as a journalist when airing the footage he gathered, reporting from the front lines of a Black Lives Matter protest. So they were on this hit piece on Grayzone journalist, trying to make it look like he's an enemy of the United States, working for, which he never kept secret that he did that. But they tried to pretend he did. And then here they had to retract it. A previous version of this article incorrectly said that the leaders of the online news site Grayzone had received payments from Iranian media, according to recently unearthed documents. The documents show that only one of the site's editors received such payment. The article has been corrected. The bogus defamatory line has since been publicly retracted by the Washington Post, undercutting Men's, which is the writer who did this at the Washington Post, his apparent agenda, which was to falsely insinuate Russia and Iranian sponsorship of the Grayzone news. But he kept his tweet up. I wrote about a news site whose top leaders have taken money from Iran as well as Russia, showing how it's getting harder to trace the forces behind any one false narrative for you. It's free. And then even Ryan Grimm, even a hack like Ryan Grimm, he has to call them out, try to get himself a little bit more credibility. He said, your article does not even remotely begin to substantiate the claims you're making in this tweet. How is this tweet still up with the correction? The answer to who funds the Grayzone is soon going to be Jeff Bezos, because he's implying they're going to sue them for defamation, and then Jeff Bezos is going to have to pay Grayzone a lot of money. And just so, you want to say something, Kurt?
It's actually getting easier to trace the forces behind any one false narrative.
Yeah, it actually is.
One source, it's the government, like every single time.
Yeah. Well, here's what Caitlin Johnstone says. She says, the hit piece is having its intended effect. You see professional empire apologists all over Twitter today promoting the false claim that Grayzone is funded by Iran and Russia. The empire's information warriors now have one more weapon they can use to weaken public trust in dissent journalism whenever it presents an inconvenient narrative. And this guy says, Max Blumenthal now see, here it is. So here's the people doing it. Eli Kohanemim, Max Blumenthal now documented to be on Islamic Republic of Iran's payroll, a national security threat. He and Grayzone News should be investigated. Shocking. A woman whose career is built on lies, telling more lies. Never would have seen that coming, says Benjamin Rubenstein.
She's Kohanim. She's important as Kohanim.
So let me bring in Max Blumenthal. Max Blumenthal is the award-winning journalist as well as the editor-in-chief and founder of the independent investigative news website, The Grayzone. He's also the best-selling author of several books, including Goliath, The 51-Day War, and The Management of Savagery. Welcome back to the show, Max Blumenthal. Hi, Max.
Hey, Jimmy and Kurt.
Hey,
good to see you.
So it's good to see you. By the way, great set the other night in Rutherford, New Jersey. Very funny, as always.
Thanks. I hope the video of it survived.
I'm sure it did. But the spooks were really out for... Look, here's I-24 News. Operating in the Grayzone, the pro-Hamas outlet being funded by Iran and Russia. So, and here's what Mark Ames said. He said, this is the second Washington Post hit piece against the Grayzone this year. based on the sourcing media here, you get the sense Langley and the DC press corps are so frustrated that their disinformation hex cast upon Grayzone has had no effect. So they're trying to summon the feds to shut the Grayzone down. Articles like this, placed in reputable media accusing Grayzone of working with foreign enemy states, can be used as documentation to obtain FISA warrants to spy on its journalists.
Oh, like weapons of mass destruction. They can plant on you through the press.
So just
invade you.
That's exactly right. And one last thing I'll show is on almost the same day the Washington Post published its attack on the Grayzone, the paper abruptly fired its editor-in-chief, Sally Busby, and implemented a desperate plan to prevent its complete dissolution. We are losing large amounts of money, Washington Post publisher Will Lewis lamented during a June 3rd staff meeting. Your audience has halved in recent years. People are not reading your stuff. I can't sugarcoat it anymore. Well, maybe slandering anti-war, truth-telling independent journalists is your secret to getting more readers? Is that what they're trying to do?
Was a staff meeting with Jeff Bezos, the guy in charge of what they do?
So this is, but okay, so Max, what would you like to say about this?
Well, this is why they're failing. I mean, no, people don't want to read a full-page article about Wyatt Reed when he was starting out his journalistic career, doing some appearances on Press TV, which he was completely public about, where he said, even on his Twitter bio at the time, producer Press TV, and now we learn about those appearances in the Washington Post. Like, what does that have to do with anybody's life? People don't want to see independent media attacked by a publication owned by one of the richest men in the world, who inked a $600 million deal with the CIA to host its cloud through Amazon just days after buying the Washington Post. They're sick of propaganda on behalf of the three-letter agencies, CIA, FBI, DHS, and all their NGO fronts like the Atlantic Council that are cited in this article, to punch down, hippie punch independent anti-war journalists because, and it says this in the article, it says this straight up, we have been exposing Israel's propaganda since October 7th, which they've been using to manufacture consent for genocide. People actually want to see media hold power to account, which is the opposite of what the Washington Post is doing here, which is why the Washington Post has this bold motto on its banner head, which declares that democracy dies in darkness. And what's really happening here is darkness is dying in democracy as people vote with their feet to walk away from the Washington Post and to watch Jimmy Dore, to support outlets like the Grayzone that are producing factual journalism, exposing Israel's genocide, exposing the U.S. national security state. And as Mark Ames said, they failed to paint us as some peddlers of disinformation. They failed to discredit us. And so now the only thing they have left is to try to get us all silenced behind prison bars with the most bogus allegations possible, trying to tie Wyatt doing journalism for Press TV years before he ever was part of the Grayzone to some nefarious Iranian plot to control the Grayzone today.
So, and even less, so another consequence of this, which is also very serious, is that places like Patreon, Stripe, PayPal, they will use an article like this in the Washington Post to then demonetize you and say you've broken our terms of service, and then they keep all your money. Well, GoFundMe did that to you, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, we created this position for Wyatt Reed at the Grayzone with a public crowdfunder. GoFundMe suspended us for that, and we went to Spot Fund. And that's how we created the position for Wyatt. The Washington Post never mentions that. They make readers, especially people who are sort of media illiterate, think that Iran created the position for Wyatt at the Grayzone. And that was the whole point, to spur this tidal wave of lies and disinformation, because we know the greatest propagators of disinformation are mainstream and corporate media like the Washington Post. But we were suspended from GoFundMe. We had to go to another site called Spot Fund, and that's how we raised the money. We actually have a new fundraiser up at Spot Fund. You just have to go to spotfund.com/WeFundTheGrayzone to support Wyatt Reed and us against this insane attack. But Wyatt is also debanked. He has been removed from Venmo. He has been removed from PayPal. He is not allowed to do financial transactions there, and they've never explained why.
Even Chase, the Bank of Hitler, won't take his business?
Well, we'll see what happens next, but it looks like the spooks, the censorship industrial complex, and the three-letter agencies are trying to create some kind of social credit system where if you effectively criticize Israel and interfere with the U.S. national security state's propaganda imperatives, they lower your social credit and block you from being able to participate in the financial networks. That's what they've been doing to Wyatt for years.
So, Max, help me try to understand this. So, Jeff Bezos doesn't just wake up one day and say, "Hey, let's go smear these independent anti-war journalists," right? So, or does he? Where does this come from? Why would the Washington Post want to spend so much time trying to discredit? It's not just because that you're showing them up and with your reporting. Is it because they're funded by AIPAC also, or Israel, or they're advertised? What makes them want to do this?
Well, look at everyone cited in the article, everyone quoted. I mentioned the Atlantic Council, funded by the U.S. government, took money from Burisma when Hunter Biden was on Burisma's board, and the Atlantic Council was giving awards to Joe Biden, funded by Saudi Arabia, funded by the arms manufacturers. Another organization quoted Australia's Strategic Policy Institute, funded by the State Department, funded by the arms manufacturers, making a killing in the Gaza genocide and the Ukraine proxy war. Everybody quoted in this article against us is state-backed, but they're backed by NATO states. So that's good. Falsely accusing the Grayzone of being state-backed. I mean, that's the irony, but it also tells you what the agenda is here. That the three-letter agencies, the national security state, does not want independent outlets to be doing factual reporting, explaining how they're deceiving the public into all these wars that are so profitable for the backers of all the think tanks that spread their propaganda. You have this guy, Emerson Brooking, from the Atlantic Council, quoted in the article, declaring that Wyatt Reed has deep ties to Iranian state media. He did like a few dozen appearances on Press TV. According to this article, he got chump change for it. And he has deep ties, according to this spook. Then he says, we are doing narrative laundering at the Grayzone for Russia, as though Russian intelligence officials are supplying us with our information and supplying us with like all of our news. And what they're trying to say is independent media doesn't exist. The people have no voice who support us. And who's saying it? It's someone who actually does narrative laundering for the CIA, for the State Department, who's funded by the US government, and it is spreading disinformation about us. That's who's doing this, and that's what the Washington Post exists to do. So
Jeff Bezos has we reported at this, he initially had over a $600 million deal with the CIA to do cloud hosting for them. He owns many other media outlets, not just in the United States, but in Europe. When I was in Norway, people were complaining about Jeff Bezos' influence in their news over there, too. So, of course, these billionaires don't buy news outlets to make money. They buy them so they can control the narrative and make sure that people aren't investigating them, right? So you don't want a news organization exposing Jeff Bezos and all the garbage that he's doing with Amazon and whatever around the world, and the dealings he's doing with the CIA. And so what probably happens is that, so he's in bed with the CIA. They have a very friendly relationship. The CIA feeds stories to the Washington Post. The Washington Post repeats them because they're repeaters, not actual reporters. And then they say, hey, here's some information on these people who are undermining the CIA. And so they go ahead and they print it, and they use all these sources, like you point out, and that's a great article you wrote about this. Everybody should check it out. And you point out how every single one of them is a deep state actor, a liar, a manufacturer of consent for war and the war machine and the intelligence community. And so that's really how this happened. It's the what it was, somebody called it the blob, right? So
Yep.
it's how the blob works, right?
Yeah, completely. I mean, I saw some Google higher up praising the Washington Post quote unquote digital threats correspondent Joseph Menn, who wrote this article. Google and Amazon are the suspects in the question, who hosts the cloud for Israel's genocidal AI system known as Lavender, which has been generating targets in Gaza so fast that the Israeli actual soldiers, people, operators of the weapon systems can't even process the amount of targets they're receiving. Israel uses an AI system that contains information on every person in Gaza, and it's telling the Israeli military who to hit, whose house to bomb at night. The system has a sub-program called Where's Daddy, which helps guide Air Force operators and other weapon systems operators on hitting homes at night. And the question is, who hosts the cloud that contains all that information on people in Gaza? You've seen employees at Google and Amazon, lots of tech employees resign in protest and protest public meetings of these giant tech firms, which have the cloud space, are some of the only tech giants on earth that have the cloud space to host a program like that. And they're resigning in protest because these are likely culprits in helping Israel participate in this genocide. These are weapons contractors when we talk about Amazon or we talk about Google or Meta. And they're being threatened by tiny independent outlets who are crowdfunding for positions for their editors, and they're targeting us in full-page articles. So yeah, what is behind that? It's a ruling elite that's incredibly threatened by the public. Not just us, but the public, because Jimmy Dore or the Grayzone, Kurt Metzger, anyone, they couldn't do what they do without the public. The Washington Post, the reporters there, they couldn't do what they do without one of the three richest men in the world. And as soon as his money goes away, well, I don't know where they're going to look for jobs, but I hear Press TV might be hiring.
Bam. Well, I just love, this is my favorite part of the article, when the publisher of the Washington Post says, hey, we're losing lots of money. Nobody's reading your stuff. I can't sugarcoat it anymore. And it doesn't make them, like, why are you telling your staff that?
That's my question. Why are you going to Bezos and saying, hey, maybe tell the CIA we got to do better stories?
Yeah, maybe we should start doing some actual news reporting. Maybe we should start telling the truth. Maybe we should give people a reason to read the Washington Post. Like that never clicks. It's like, so
just to laugh at Taylor Lorenz is not enough to run the whole thing.
So
she can't carry the whole thing on her face yarmulke.
Max, I mean, you run a news site. What do you think was his thinking is telling them that?
Why is he telling them we can't sugarcoat it anymore? And
yeah, but he does. That doesn't seem. I didn't see any reporting where he said, "So this is what we're going to do from now on." Like, we're going to act. He doesn't have a plan to fix this.
Yeah, they've wasted a giant penis-shaped rocket's worth of money on this.
I mean, the plan, according to this Vanity Fair article, is for creating a third wing of the Washington Post, which focuses on kind of social media storytelling. So basically, what they're saying is that our content isn't the problem. The problem is the public is stupid, and we're just going to give them news that's easier to digest because they're not reading articles and no one's picking up newspapers anymore. And basically people don't know how to read. But, they could actually try afflicting the powerful instead of comforting the comfortable.
Oh,
that might actually work. But instead they're hippie punching Wyatt Reed, for when he was starting out his journalistic career, doing some production and appearances for Press TV. I mean, there are so many powerful people who are committing so many corrupt, heinous acts that the public is furious about, and the Washington Post is running cover for them day after day. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe the problem isn't that the public's stupid, it's that the public is onto you.
Yeah, I think that yeah. So of course they're not going to identify the actual problem. They're going to pretend it's something else. It's our delivery system. We need to just package it different. We need to package our bullshit news stories, pro-war propaganda from the establishment and the weapons manufacturer. It's funny how you put it. I never thought of Amazon as like a weapons sale. But in a sense, I guess they are Google and what they.
Everything is part of the weapon thing. The food supply, the drug supply, the Amazon supply. Everything ties into the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, I mean the $95 billion in aid. It's not like it's aid to Ukraine to help them win. It's basically laundering money through the Ukrainian military that all comes back here in the form of contracts and subcontracts to private companies like Amazon, like Palantir, like the weapons manufacturers, Northrop Grumman, and they're all going to set up new plants thanks to this aid. The Wall Street Journal reported in May that the Biden administration hopes to extract political benefits from that aid because new plants will be set up in Pennsylvania and Arizona, which are swing states that Biden hopes to win. So that's kind of,
really
America runs on the necro economy.
Okay. Well, has there been any fallout, positive or negative, around this story?
Well, I mean, the fallout is people just lying about us, like this Israeli public outlet I-24 falsely saying we're funded by Iran and Russia in order to get us investigated, and they say there are calls from the U.S. to investigate the Grayzone. And who do they quote? Who do they quote on those calls? Rabbi Shmuley.
No,
yes, Rabbi Shmuley. Oh, even his name sounds like an anti-Semitic insult, doesn't it?
I mean, he's literally like lifted from the brain of Joseph Goebbels. He's like, if Nazis want Jews to be one thing, it's Rabbi Shmuley.
I think Rabbi Shmuley made that statement in some way on Twitter saying, "Is this what I look like to you?" And then, actually, to my mind, toned it down a little bit with how he looked.
Yeah, he for Purim, which is the Jewish holiday where it's our like Halloween, he dressed up as an anti-Semitic stereotype, but it's kind of like redundant.
Kind of like a hat on a hat, if you know what I mean.
So I mean, yeah, the fallout is ridiculous. It's false. It's absurd. But at the same time, one of the two major papers in America is openly trying to get us jailed, to give us the Assange treatment, and Assange is still in jail. So it's important to stand up against this. I mean, we launched a fundraiser just to support Wyatt Reed, and it's at spotfund/WeFundTheGrayZone. And, it's just important to support independent media. And they state openly in the article why they're going after us. And it's for busting Israeli propaganda after October 7th and busting the propaganda that supports the Ukraine proxy war. Aaron Mate is called out in the article for accusing Bellingcat of being a NATO front.
It is. Everyone knows it is.
And they quote the great Rabbi Shmuley as a source. This is a solid article.
Of course, Bellingcat. They admit they take their money directly from the NED, which was invented so the CIA could fund stuff without it saying it's coming from the CIA.
A gamer just really wanted to bring Putin to justice who lived in England.
Yeah, that's
a gamer put it together.
I mean, but you're right. I mean, that's people who are media illiterate won't know the difference. They'll think, right. Oh, Bellingcat is some kind of credible organization.
Dude, I don't even. Okay, I told you before I worked in the show, I had never ever heard of Bellingcat ever once.
Right.
So how would media illiterate people ever even know anything about it?
Right. Well, because now the New York Times and places like that are starting to use it as a source, and so they'll go right, Max.
Yeah, I mean, they exist for like media elites and spooks, and that's who loves them.
Yes, yeah.
But it's not like they're depending on the public.
Well, no. Rabbi Shmuley used to hang out with Oprah and Michael Jackson. I just want to point out that creepy shit. And he sells dildos with his daughter. Kosher sex
I'm starting to think Michael Jackson was framed.
Why, you think it was a clone? Because he looked completely different by the end?
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
No, I think he was calling out powerful people. I think he was killed. But I'm just starting to think that.
It's normal to give a guy.
Definitely died.
Wait, you don't think it's normal to give a guy propofol every night to go to sleep until he dies?
What did you? What did you say, Max?
Yeah, no. Kurt said it.
Okay.
But,
you know why he took that every night?
He said he was Michael Jackson's rabbi.
Yeah, Rabbi Shmuley was his rabbi. It's not a good sign. And but you know why Michael took that every night? Because he was innocent. That's why he needs the dark, dreamless sleep of propofol.
Anyway, there's a lot more to the Michael Jackson than people know. That's all I'm saying.
There's a lot of weird stuff too. He was a Jehovah's Witness, though. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know that.
But I think Joe Jackson is some weird other stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like real weird stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, let's not get too off track. Max Blumenthal, thank you so much. And what's the you're doing a fundraiser for Wyatt?
Yeah, we're at spot.fund.com/WeFundTheGrayZone. We'll be sending that out to everyone who subscribes to our email list, which you can sign up for at thegrayzone.com. And we're just going to continue to produce more really hard-hitting journalism. You'll see this week what I mean by that. And that's why they're after us. They're after you too. They're pretty much after everyone also because they're jealous because no one's reading them. And people trust comedians now more than politicians or journalists, as they should.
Yeah, I mean, just look at my Wikipedia page. That's how you know it's run by the intelligence community, and they've got to stamp you as a conspiracy theorist, right? In the first sentence, even though every conspiracy I've ever reported on has been true.
I could easily trust a convicted felon over anyone working in government.
That's right.
With just if I had to just make a blind guess, I would go with the felon.
Yeah,
as opposed to the uncaught felon.
Great, and Wikipedia won't allow you to use Grayzone as a source. So if you want to
made us a deprecated source, and then weeks later set up a Wikipedia page about us in order to defame us, and there's no way that you can come in and edit and correct the lies that are spread about us on our page. But you also can't use our factual journalism to cite on Wikipedia.
Right. So, I mean, I think they still have things like they still pretend that Assad gassed his own people, even though all the whistleblowers from the OPCW came out and Aaron Mate did all that reporting on it and exposed it. They still pretend like that's a conspiracy theory. No, the conspiracy theory is that Assad, it's funny how they could switch that. I remember Cenk Uygur tried to call me a conspiracy theorist because I was debunking the Russiagate conspiracy theory. Like, no, I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm
a collusion theorist.
I'm debunking the stupid Russiagate conspiracy, just like I was debunking the stupid conspiracy that Assad gassed his own people. I was debunking those, right? Just like I was debunking that Russia somehow helped Trump hack and Julian Assange hack into the DNC server. That didn't happen. Jimmy, that didn't happen.
When it comes from the top down, it's not a conspiracy theory.
But Wikipedia still says all that stuff. I'm pretty sure. I haven't read my page in a while, but I know in the first sentence it calls me a conspiracy theorist, and they'll never get rid of that.
Well, I got some great news. No one gives a shit about Wikipedia's a joke. It's a joke to anyone that knows anything.
Well, most people don't know anything. That's the problem, right? Most people...
They know that much because
most people think Fauci's still a good guy. Right? Most people still have Ukraine flags in their fucking bio. Right?
I wouldn't say most
Even
people.
as they're sending nuclear subs and hypersonic missiles to Cuba.
I think that's grotesquely inflated. You got to remember that stuff's fake. When you're like, nobody likes this, they probably don't.
Oh, you think about the Ukraine war?
Not just that. Anything online where you're like, why does this guy have all these... People have been buying followers for years. This is... For many, many years, it's been fake. That's why there's a dead internet conspiracy. I don't even understand the full theory, but there's bots doing everything. So all the stuff that nobody likes, there isn't a bunch of people that like it. They're faking it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Max Blumenthal, good work over at the Grayzone. Great work in Rutherford, New Jersey. You should do a little tour. You should do a little stand-up tour.
Why do you hate yourself as a Jew? That's my question on behalf of the Washington Post.
Yeah, I thought they were going to ask me to condemn Hamas, but
will you condemn them?
But will you?
For some reason, I never got an email from them. But
do you condemn them?
But do you condemn them?
I condemn them so much I would never have sent them money like Bibi did. That's how much I condemn them.
That's how much I condemn them.
Gave up on them years ago.
But yeah, we're going to look at doing some more live Grayzone shows, and thanks for bringing me back on stage. It felt good. Thanks for supporting us here.
Okay, great job. All right, brother. Take care and good luck. We'll talk to you soon. Are you Sleepy Joe who has zero cognitive performance, scared of walking upstairs without being worried you're going to fall down? Do you struggle to muster the focus and brain power for basic things in life, such as eating ice cream and riding a bike? This is selling coffee by making jokes about the president. You need to stop drinking woke liberal coffee and start your day by drinking Rumble's very own 1775 coffee. I think that sounds silly. There's no such thing as woke coffee. There's just coffee. But they do. But guess what? They have this Rumble has their own coffee, 1775 coffee. Never mind that it will be the best tasting coffee you have ever had in your life. As in seriously good. Steph drinks it. She likes it.
I do.
Now, I only drink decaf. So they don't have decaf right now. So I can't tell you, but Steph likes it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's also ethically sourced. That's important. That sounds woke to me, if you ask me the truth. It's also ethically sourced from a family farm in the high altitude mountains of Bolivia. So instead of waking up tomorrow morning and drinking your mold-infested, big corporation-owned woke ideology coffee, come on with the woke. That is probably making you sick from the pesticides it's sprayed with. That might be true. Try Rumble's 1775 coffee. Support freedom of speech and build a parallel economy that actually values you. Now, I'm all for that. Go to 1775coffee.com right now and pick up your first bag. Use the code DORE, that's D-O-R-E, and you'll save you 10% off your first order. Steph's favorite roast is dark. That's true. You won't regret it for a moment. Level up your morning routine with a bag of 1775 coffee and sleep well at night, knowing that your hard-earned dollars are going towards supporting freedom-loving creators like me on Rumble. Hey, come see me do stand-up on tour in Ontario, California, Davenport, Iowa, Las Vegas, Nevada, Chicago, Illinois, a special video show with stand-up, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.